Hello and welcome back to the Game Room. You know what I love? Video games. You know what I love? Talking about games. And it seems like a lot of people these days who cover games seem to hate them. Or at least the people who play them. Well, that's not me, and that's not the 5,543 of you beautiful people checking out this video here today. We are almost halfway to 5,600. Unbelievable. Thank you guys so much for all the support, the comments, the likes. Apparently hyping the video is a new thing we're supposed to shill for now, so do that or not. I'm so glad to have you here today. I'm so glad to be talking about the Xbox 360 again. And it's been nice to really revisit some of these titles and also some of these prices a year later after the FOMO has pretty much gone away. Though a lot of these prices have come down. They haven't all come down to where they were before, but this seems like a great time to talk about some of the better titles I found in covering almost 300 of these, and which ones I would tell you guys to pick up right now while you're here. So if that sounds good to you, let's check it out. There's a lot of games out there, some of which you've never even heard of. That's where I come in. My name's Luke. I've been playing games since the age of 2, and I have no life.
This is my game room.
Alright, well the first game I want to talk about today, I actually saw someone mention in the comments last week, and this is one that was originally recommended by you guys, and I'm glad I picked it up. There was some DLC that you could purchase on the Xbox Live store that unfortunately now I do not think you can get any longer. However, I still think you can get the game. Well, I know you can get the game, and I'd recommend it, and that is Dark Messiah Might and Magic Elements. And this is, I think it's the last game in the Might and Magic series, which apparently was a long-running series. I know it had PC games, other things like that. It kind of blended in with the Baldur's Gates, with the Dungeons and Dragons, those kind of high fantasy titles for myself back in the day when they came out. But this one's particularly notable because it does play, again, like a first-person Oblivion-like type game. In this, you can choose of different classes who you want to play, and then that aforementioned DLC I told you about allows you to then play as slightly different characters. There's a paladin, though the paladin kind of plays like the warrior, and I think the other one is a necromancer maybe, though that one's likely close to the mage, but it's just a really fun, contained game. You are going through levels, so in a lot of these games, I don't know about you guys, but I can get overwhelmed with the sheer scale and scope of something, and what's nice about a game like this is that it feels like it's on rails enough to be manageable. And that is such a thing that I think I can't be understated. With everything being open world, there is something to be said about a crafted experience. It's one of those things that I hearken to the original XCOM Enemy Unknown on the 360 versus I think the way they did XCOM 2, where it was procedurally generated for XCOM 2 versus Enemy Unknown, they were set up. So the set pieces were meant to be in a certain way instead of it just generating, assets, but they don't really go together sometimes. And I feel like that happens a lot with these open world games, but Dark Messiah doesn't do that. And it still has the fun nature of pillaging the enemies you take out. There's things you can do like kicking them off cliffs, and just there was a big attack, like there's a cool story going on, and I really enjoyed my time with it. This was one of the ones that, like all these ones, if I'm recommending them again, it's because I enjoyed it just in the short snippet, couple of hours I played it back last year. But this is one that I still highly recommend. It got up around $50-$60 complete. I think it's back down to around $20. Well worth it. One that you just should definitely pick up, especially if the 360 ever does kick back up in value, which it might, or if it doesn't, I don't mind. I just want to recommend some fun games to you guys. Speaking of fun games, I love the Gears of War series, and one of the cool things I discovered last year is that they had Gears of War clones. And it's funny how time will make the absence the heart grow fond with these kind of things. It's almost like it happened on the NES or say with Zelda clones. Back in the day, I didn't want to play a Zelda clone. All right, don't give me Crystallis, don't give me Crusader of Senti. I just want to play Link to the Past or Zelda 2. But as longer and longer as we get away, when we get these retro scenes that try and do it but it's just not the same. You want to go back to a game of its era that was trying to copy the Masters, but just wasn't quite there. And that's kind of how this game feels, which is called Inversion. And they even did the fun thing, whereas, anyways, this is a Gears of War clone through and through. It takes place in a world where some aliens have hit and they've completely wrecked the laws of physics, where up is down, left is right. Essentially, they use gravity type propulsion. You get into these areas where gravity no longer makes sense. Things are floating in the air, this and that, and it's you and your buddy at the beginning of the game. You're going back to rescue your wife and child, and just you see kind of how things kind of transcended, but it also jumps forward into the future because this is a game that came out in the late 2000s, and nonlinear storytelling was all the rage thanks to things like Lost and things of that ilk. Which, I have a love-or-hate relationship with. I feel like now, it's funny how things are cyclical. I was big bought into this when it came out. I even developed scripts myself, me and my older brother, where we were doing that kind of thing for a potential short film we were working on. And then now, I cannot stand it. I cannot stand it so much. If I see a television show where I see a climax area, then it's like 6 hours later. It gets the biggest groan out of me. And it's just funny how things can change like that. But the gameplay in this is fun. It plays like Gears of War. It's not as visceral because you're not going around with the machine gun that has a chainsaw on it and sawing locusts in half. Nothing will quite give you that satisfaction, though there is a bayonet on the end and you can go and skewer people. So I did find that very, very enjoyable. But it's just funny how those little gameplay hooks, that's what sold me on Gears of War, is that ability to chainsaw someone down, because it is one of those things where you throw caution to the wind, you throw everything to the wind, like, I just want to do this. And you can kind of do that in this game too, and it's a lot of fun. Alright, next one. This was a game that jumped up very quickly when the FOMO happened. Though it's funny because it jumped up, but I never really saw anyone talking about it other than a few people. Mainly because it got so expensive so quickly, and that game is Knight's Contract. Now, I want to say it's down to around $50, which I think is a fair price for what this is. It plays like a Dante's Inferno or a God of War type clone, where you are a very overpowered being who can go around doing all these fancy moves from the offset. I think you use a scythe. However, the thing that probably sunk this game when it came out is that it is also sort of a pseudo escort mission through the entirety of the game, because you have a girl with you who you need to protect, and I can imagine that can get pretty damn annoying. But when I played it, I really liked it. I thought it was better than expected, given the generic title, the generic look, but it was pretty competent and pretty difficult too. Not hugely difficult, but fun enough. Something I would definitely recommend. The combat itself is very impressive. A big old hack and slash, but one that's not going to require tons of tinkering with loadouts, specs, upgrades, things that I enjoy. Don't get me wrong, I enjoy them. I just don't need them in an action game where it's about hack and slash. Like, give me one or two choices as far as where to upgrade this or get a new combo. I don't need a skill tree. I don't need to level up. And it just, this is one of the reasons why I enjoy these 360 games so much, is because they are basically modern games where they could have come out this year even, but they play so much more simply in a way, or experimentally, because they used the controller before everyone was just doing things the same way. And this is a fun one. Alright, moving on to one of my favorite ones on the 360 that I really, really liked. I don't have it complete. I do not see it all that often. At gaming conventions, at swap meets, I think I've come across a copy of it once or twice. And that is Dead to Rights Retribution, which, if you guys have been following me since last year, I hope you downloaded that free DLC that gave complete free scenarios where you get to play as a guy in a chopper and the kind of the counter-terrorist type thing. But the actual gameplay, you can either play as the wolf at times or you play as the dude. This is the third game in the series, and it's funny because it's one of those names in games I remember seeing. I heard about it, saw the ads for it, but I didn't have a PS2 at the time, and I never picked it up, and I kind of regret it. I probably want to go back and pick those up. It kind of feels the vein of a Max Payne as far as that sort of, not noir, but, you know, tough, dirty cop, very edgy, that kind of thing. And when you had Grand Theft Auto 3, it's kind of like, all right, well, how much more can we get into this? I don't necessarily need a deeper storyline, but the combat in this, the actual playability of it is very cool. The first stage you really play in earnest outside of the dog one is going through this tower that reminds me almost like a action Die Hard type thing. And the real fun thing about the game is that you can do these combos where you grab the enemies, you can throw them off of ledges, it allows you to disarm them. It's very, very hyper violent. So it's fun all around. It gives you some choices, it gives you some combos, those kind of things. But a lot of fun, decent story, and one of those ones that I'd like to play more of. And if you jumped on that free DLC, it's just a lot of content for what you get. So can't recommend that one more. All right, one of the only racing games that I'm going to talk about here, I mentioned it last week when I talked about the, what game was it? I can't remember what game it was, but the other game I talked about, well, here it is, Blur. And this is the particular version. There's a few of these where they had special cars you could unlock by putting in a button prompt. You saw this a lot on the 360 and PS3 era, where the DLC would be on the disc. However, the problem is that there's no guarantees that this disc was the one that came with this case. So even though it has the insert, even though it has the code, unless I was doing it wrong, because I think it might have to only be used on online multiplayer, and as I don't have Xbox Live any longer, that might be part of the problem. But the game itself, super fun. It is basically modern Mario Kart. So, I was talking about Split Second. Okay, so it's like playing Mario Kart. You drive over items, you get boosts, you get sort of like energy weapons, all these other kind of things, but they're with realistic looking cars, and it's just a really fun game. It's one of those things that you think, you play this and you're like, how have they not done this again? Why is there not a sequel to this? Why is there not more of this? Because this is really, really damn enjoyable. And I will say this game got up around $50, $60 complete. Totally worth it, just hard to swallow when you're buying so many of these $10, $15 games. I think it's back down to around $25, $30. Can't recommend it more. There is one that has another little thing on this. If you guys know where those came from, I think it's a Tempest or a Pontiac Trans Am or something like that, or I don't know, but this one was the Chrome BMW, and the other one was a Viper. The other one was a Viper. I haven't seen that. I'm assuming it's some sort of exclusive like GameStop, Target, Toys R Us, that kind of thing. But yeah, Blur is super, super fun. A great co-op game as well. Now, speaking of games that are super fun, this is one that I saw fairly early in the collecting there last year, and it's just very simple. It's based on an anime. I think it's also a manga or comic book, and it's called Afro Samurai. And I remember when this TV show came out, or the cartoon came out, and it just seemed a little too over the top for what it was, as well as I'm not the biggest anime guy. Not that I don't like it, I appreciate it, but it just didn't seem like something that I was going to be into. After playing the game, I might have to change my mind, because the thing that's very cool about this is, once again, the way they use the controller to do a control scheme that is not something you would typically see. So with this, you have the ability to kind of take out enemies, and then the way you flick the right stick will then make that slice go, and then the way it hits the enemies will completely separate that part of the enemy. So you can go straight up from up and down. Like, it's like you're slicing Swiss cheese with how effective it is at doing this. And it is super over the top, it is super fun, and is one of those games that I can't believe was not more popular. I want to say, had this not been tied to that brand, if it had just been another game, another sort of generic game, it might have done better. Because people like me who were not looking to buy a game based on a property avoided this, and we made a mistake, because it plays really damn well, and I liked it. I liked it a lot. Recommend picking that one up. I think it's like $20. And there's also a slipcase. So I don't have the slipcase, so bear that in mind to you guys out there who are the hardcore collectors. There is a slipcase that comes with it if you want the full copy. Now, here's a game that actually was donated to the channel, which was so cool that I went through and I actually beat the game. And it was so nice to check it out because this really is one of the last games, I think it came out in 2005, 2006, where you can see the bridging of that Doom PC genre before it got infected with Call of Duty twin stick type shooter. And that game is Fear, First Encounter Assault Recon. Now, there's a really creepy story going on. There's a lot of trippiness that can happen. I played this game with the sound down just because my family's usually sleeping when I have time to play games. So the visuals definitely were freaky, but I did have the benefit of not hearing the sound design all the time and scaring myself half to death. But what's cool is that you have a health bar, you have limited resources. The maps themselves do not have yellow paint everywhere, so you do have to use your mind to get out of these places and figure out where the hell to go, or oh, there's a corridor I missed, or this or that, or hey, you know what, something happened or enemies came from behind me. Oh man, there must be a door open somewhere in this base. I think it's only like 10 levels, but it really is one of those things where, like Max Payne, not everything is completely clear of where you go, but it's so fun to play that you don't really mind. As well as there is a super cool game loop where you can slow down time and then take out enemies in certain areas, throw grenades, that kind of thing. There's even DLC that came out as a standalone called the Fear Files for this game, and I really like this game. It's like $20 or $30. One of the coolest donations I've gotten. It's because it's such a quality game. I absolutely loved it. Thank you again. And one that I would highly recommend picking up if you can find it. There's sequels as well. They do not play the same way. For the most part, they have the same vibe, but they are a lot more Call of Duty-ized, especially because the second one, I think, was made by Treyarch, the people who went on to make the Black Ops Call of Duty series. But I love this first one. The first one, definitely. If you don't play any of the other ones, recommend checking out the first one. All right, getting down to the last three here. So, speaking of really obscure random games, this is one that did not come out in North America, or maybe North, but it did come out in Brazil and Mexico, so not come out in the United States. It's based on a property I'd never heard of, but I guess is another cartoon, and that is El Chavo Kart. Now, this game is stupid expensive, but it has come down to earth around the $100 range or so. At some point, it was up around $300-400. I did not plan to pay anywhere close to that, though it does have a $400 price tag on it that I left on for posterity, but nowhere near that. We're talking like a fraction of that. But it is a very fun Mario Kart-like game. Much like the way Blur is, this one really is. If I didn't tell you it wasn't Mario Kart, it has the feel, it has the vibe. It came out around the same time as Mario Kart 8. I want to say a year or two later after, or maybe even the same year that it came out on the Wii U. So I think this came out in 2014. I think the Wii U version of Mario Kart came out maybe in 2013, something like that. But this is surprisingly fun. No one really talks about it, and the game is region free. So if you can find a copy of it anywhere, highly recommend it. It is stupid fun. It is a shame that it's not more widely available. I know I think there's a mobile game, things like that, but I don't know the series at all. From what I've heard, the people who like the series like the game, but it's just a fun, competent racer, and one that I would recommend checking out. Speaking of another competent racer, I know we're talking about 3 racing games. I almost never talk about racing games. That's funny. The game we're talking about is Nailed. So this is an off-road ATV type game that I can't remember who made it. The people who made this, they made another game I really liked. I'll have to look into it, but this really plays fast. It reminds me a lot of Excitebike 64 on the N64, which I really enjoyed, but even better, there's tons of different maps. The races are fast and furious. You feel like you're driving up the side of a damn mountain, and you don't have to be, it's much more arcadey than simulation, and I'm not a big simulation racing fan. So Nailed, I've never come across it. I want to say I saw it like, I think it was like $20 to $30. This one has a sticker on it that says bonus content included. So maybe I'll end up talking about it again when I talk about my my oddities and download games. But yeah, that's one. Definitely pick it up if you can find it, because it is a racing game, kind of like Blur. You might be able to get a deal on it where they only put $5, $10. But if you find it around the normal $25, $30, I'd still pick it up. All right, then the last game we're going to talk about here today is my favorite sports title on the 360 outside of NBA Jam, and that is the legendary Backbreaker. And the reason why is not even for the football game. It's for the damn running back mode, where you have to go through 100 levels and score 100 touchdowns without being tackled, and you only have a certain amount of lives, and then you have guys coming at you, and you can juke them, you can spin move, you can hurdle them. There's also a DLC-only sequel called Backbreaker Vengeance that sadly is no longer available, but I actually like that even more than the original Backbreaker, because that entire game is just about the halfback mode. So in that, you play as a halfback, or you can play as someone who's tackling you. They have cycles of 5, but they also get much more complicated. But Backbreaker itself was the design of the Euphoria engine that was eventually borrowed by Red Dead Redemption, Grand Theft Auto, and then they eventually bought out the people who made the engine and made that the Rockstar engine. So if you're wondering why in this game, when they have super realistic tackles, super realistic football, they don't use any licenses, so all the names are made up. They're all fake entities, that kind of thing. But the game is super fun just for that halfback mode. I think I picked it up for $20-25 for that mode alone. Well worth it. Probably my favorite football game of all time because of that. It is so fun. It is such a fun, dumb, stupid mode where it's like, hey, you need to go 100 yards to get a touchdown. Sometimes they'll have you go through different pathways, dodge and juking, and then there's an instant replay where you can see how impressive you look. And because of the Euphoria engine, when people tackle you, unlike even in Madden, it looks super realistic, which is probably part of the reason why Rockstar bought the damn engine. Anyways, there you have it, guys. There's another 10 games you should pick up for the Xbox 360 while the prices are down. Let me know what you thought about today's video. Let me know if you have some more suggestions for Xbox 360 videos I've missed. Let me know if you like me revisiting these kind of things. If you'd like me to do this on other systems or retouch on other things I've touched on before. I do this again on the Switch games I've covered. This, I want to say, is the 44th time I've done an Xbox 360 video. And they seem to do really well. I don't know if it's because Microsoft is just imploding current day, but hey, for all of us who still remember when Xbox meant something good, even as brief as it was now, 2007 to 2013 before they shot themselves in the foot. Hey, these are some fun titles. You should pick them up. Anyways, as a reminder, I release a new video every Tuesday. It's been so nice getting a hold of you. Take care.